All right, welcome everyone. As you can see, if you're not on the call already, Adam and I are in the same room, so it's going to be fun for our call tonight. We're going to be talking session 9 already, and as I was telling Rhonda over email, it's just our text, it's gone so fast. So today we're going to cover the mature talent section. Strength thinking really is what we're going to spend most of our time on, and talk a little bit about the questions. And we'll go, if you have any general questions about the nuts and bolts of the workshops, we'll cover those too. But Adam, covered that pretty well. So I think we'll start first to see if anyone had any questions about anything from the video or in general. We'll start there.
Any reactions to it?
I thought, I'm just going to say the second part was like so much to get through.
Oh, it was heavy, huh?
Well, I think I just need more details on how to, use the materials and the scheduling, and so that's all.
Okay. Well, let's make sure we talk about that then.
Yeah, let's do that. That's something we've kind of gone back and forth about on how much we talk about, because it's like some people don't give workshops at all and they just work one-on-one. Some really need the workshop material, and some already are like, I do that, I just plug this in. So we always are talking like, well, do we need more? Do we need more resources? If we do, we will do them. So we'll make them, we'll put them out. Hi, Nikki. So yeah, let's talk about a little bit about what you might need that you didn't get from that. Like just more paper breakdown, more video breakdown.
Maybe a concrete example would probably be good. Like, but what do you guys think?
I'm going to let somebody else weigh in.
All right.
And Nikki, we're talking about...
I just said whining and then no solutions. So sorry.
That's okay. We'll talk it through. Nikki, we're talking about the, mainly the second part of the video about, did we give you enough to where you feel like you could begin to facilitate a T2S workshop? Do we need to provide more concrete examples or details or sort of step-by-steps? And that's where the question is like, where do you guys feel like we left you? Do you want more? Or you're like, nope, I'm good.
Well, I think, and just to be clear, Ron, I think you were saying was strength thinking, or were you talking?
No. I loved the strengths thinking part, and then when we got to the next part, I'm like, what does that have to do with strengths thinking? That was my first reaction.
It's separate.
Yeah, and then my second reaction was, holy crap, this is too much in one. My brain can't handle it.
Oh, well, wait till you see the video for this week.
Oh, great.
It's good though. I think it'll be less like details, but it's a 87 minutes.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Well, I kind of would like to see you guys in action, like see cameras, like see you guys, lights, camera, filming yourselves. I know you're looking forward to that, but
I actually have. There's actually a video of me. There's actually a 4-hour video of me on YouTube facilitating Talent to Strength.
So Adam, I don't want 4 hours of you. No.
Well, I know that. I know that.
It's like a nice edited cut and paste. Good stuff.
I'm teasing you. No, that would be very helpful actually, because we could fast forward. I'm just saying.
No, you can. You definitely can, but you don't want to miss any of my jokes.
Ah, okay.
No,
yeah.
But you're right.
I was thinking about it. I'll tell you frankly, I was thinking about it from a brand new person. Somebody like Nikki, who's never facilitated a training before. I mean, I have my own way of doing things, and I know how I'm going to incorporate a lot of the work here, but somebody new may not. So that's the only thing I was thinking. It was like, whoo, my head was about to explode. So I don't mean to complain and whine. I just would love to have, I think that from a support standpoint, seriously having access to you doing a training would be very helpful for someone who's never done that before.
Yeah, we should maybe do something like that. That's good. All right. Well, do check out the videos on YouTube. There is some stuff out there already. So.
And I have put a few things up in the Talent to Strength resources. I think there's a video. I think there is one of you, either an audio or a video of you facilitating. And a sample coaching session as well, which
Okay.
we'll get a little bit more into next time too, with the one-on-one.
Cool. But good, great feedback. And yeah, I just want to see what other thoughts people had, reactions to the video, questions, thoughts, ideas.
So I had two, and one is in response to what Rhonda shared. I think what would be helpful too is, seeing it in live action would be a gift, but I think too, just maybe taking a case study, like one or two of like, this is a client, you could just give like, it's this group size and it looks like this, and really not in theory say, if you have this, then this, say, this is what I did for this particular client. And here's kind of the timeline for that happened, even if it's like a document we read or something, but that, then you can take that and say, okay, I have this similar and this similar, and kind of lens it through what my needs are as a coach or something. So that might be like case studies or something is what I might call them, but that might be helpful to see what it looks like with your experience. Because even when we did that impromptu kind of coaching session online, that was so powerful just to hear how you articulate something, not as someone talking to people who want to talk to someone else about it, but literally talking to someone about in context as the live coaching session. It was like, well, that's what it looks like, instead of in theory. So
I think that's great. Yeah, we enjoy doing that part of it. So I think that would be fun.
Good.
Yeah. And then the other question I had was, on your graphic with the mountain, where you have that track and you talk about the positive leadership session that you guys do. We haven't really talked about that, I don't think, unless I've missed it. So I didn't know where that fell into this train the trainer course piece, or right there, kind of that path.
It's actually a separate class, right?
It is a separate class.
Okay.
I guess we're calling it a module. So the train the trainer is kind of all you would need for the T2S in whatever format. Positive leadership is like another training you would give potentially. It builds, it's very compatible, and we use it a lot with the same clients, but it is a separate module. And then that strength-based organization is going to be another one. We're kind of still working with our development on that, and we're estimating that each of those modules will be a similar format to this one, but only 6 weeks per. That's what I think we can get it all in 6 weeks. So we might be optimistic.
So right now we're heading up the mountain is what I see us.
Mm-hmm. And you can veer off and take, kind of, I want to get those paths back together somehow, because they really do go together. And we ended up kind of splitting them apart to say, like, you could go this other path, but you don't need to. But I do want to show that path coming back in and saying, like, it's all part of the same. You can add these other things in. You don't have to if you don't want to, but we do have more resources.
Yes, positive leadership is a pretty cool deal. So, and it fits so well with Talent to Strength. So if you are working with clients that are like, hey, we really want to take this in a leadership direction, it will be another pretty major piece that you could have in your quiver, like another arrow. I was using a metaphor, like you are a hunter or an archer, and you have different arrows in your quiver, which are weapons.
From the vegetarian. Susan, I wanted to ask you a question, because you've done some Talent to Strength workshops and some one-on-one coaching. Do you feel like there would have been, was it kind of easy to put it into practice? Did it take a lot of doing to translate? Just thought maybe you could help weigh in on this one if you'd like to.
And while she's turning her mic on, I want to say too, Susan has, if you don't mind me, kind of touting your accomplishments. She's taking members within her organization through Talent to Strength and training other trainers on it within. And so Susan is like quite the student of strengths. So she studies Gallup's work extremely closely. She studies our work extremely closely. And so she knows it better than I do. And so with that, Susan, talk about your experience. Was it hard to do your first workshop? How did you prepare? What worked?
First time, I think So going through the stuff now that you've done, you have adapted and revised the videos, and I think they are better than they were a year ago. So I think that we are moving in the right, in the right direction. So I really didn't have any trouble understanding what was there, where you were going, because I had been through it. But I think the biggest help for me was after I'd gone through it with you guys, and then when I started doing the training myself, I mean, immediately afterwards, that was what really helped it to sink in. But I spent hours and hours going over it and prepping it and getting it ready and getting the sessions done. And like we had a session every other week. So I had like the week in between to get my materials ready for the next one and decide the order and stuff. So I feel fairly comfortable now, like how I would, which things I like and what order I like them in. But because of what my top strengths are, or top talents, but no, there's strengths now. There's strengths now. But what my top talents were, because it was learner and input and responsibility and belief in connectedness, I was able to put the time into it, and everybody in the team really enjoyed what they were doing. What I did that was a little bit different that really helped is we took each of the execute.
Oh, you just went mute. Let's see if I can.
Lucy.
I'm trying to unmute you, Susan.
Okay.
Okay.
We're at my daughter's house in North Carolina, and she's got three dogs. Two of them are Vizsla, so a little bit distracted here.
No worries. No worries.
The thing that really helped a lot is that because the team had already taken the Strength Finders and knew about it, I actually assigned everybody. So when we did the thinking themes, everybody was assigned a thinking theme, and they had 5 minutes to tell that what they thought from their perspective, what that was, and to tell a story, almost like what Felinda was doing when Adam and she went through the thing, telling the story. So everybody, I didn't have to come up with the stories for all of the themes. Each one of the people on the team came up with stories. And I think that really helped a lot, having that experience. And so I haven't taken it with someone that's been totally brand new and has not seen anything of our Strength Finder. So our team had been using it probably for three years, most of them. There were a couple of new people on the team, and I think they found it a little bit harder, but they seemed to come to grasp with it. And since then, we've had a couple of them go through the foundation course, and I think they felt that helped too, with some of the things. But it is, it's a lot there, but because of my learner and input, I don't mind the 50, 60, 70-minute presentations that when they get long like that. Sometimes when they're shorter, it's lazy, but I want to know this and I want to know that. And I just want all the information. So my biggest problem is limiting, and I can see that that Adam and Felinda are striving with that too, is that how much do they pass on? How much is too much, and how much does somebody actually need to go on?
Linda really struggles with that. I mean, it's just, no, just kidding. It's me. It's me. I always struggle with, I always want to pack in too much, and yeah.
But I think that's my biggest problem, is that I've got all this information. I've got to get it out to all of these people out there. And, but yeah, everybody on our team really enjoyed it. They felt they understood talents a lot better. And so I think it was very good. But I think the thing is once the course is over, to either go through and use it right away or to go through the stuff again. If I hadn't gone through it right away afterwards, it would have been harder to get back into it. And so that made it much more comfortable going through it myself. And I mean, I went through it, I spent hours and hours going through it, probably more time than I spent on the actual course. But in the end, I think it's beneficial. I feel at least competent now.
I want to say that it really is something that maybe we should just say it right up front too, and say it loud and often. You have to go through the experience of preparing to deliver this for the first time, feeling uncertain, that it's an uncomfortable feeling, and to put in some time, like Susan's describing, to really study and own the material as much as you can. And then each time you do this, it gets better and better. What's really kind of interesting to me is how what we're providing is so much that people don't have to do, you know? So imagine.
Oh my gosh, we used to do, yeah.
Yeah. But I get it still, because it's overwhelming, because then, you know, you don't have to do everything from scratch, but you do have to wrap your mind around what's there and available to you, and how it fits together and different ways to configure it. And you're going to just have to wrestle with it. We're here to help.
And we do that. And if somebody comes to us with a question, now what we'll do if it's already done is one of us will direct you to the resource and say, this is where you're going to find this. Take a look. If you have more questions, we're here. But if you have like, I don't know how to quite do this with this group, what are your ideas? I'm stuck here. We're here for that. And we enjoy that part of it too. So reach out to us. I will suggest just exactly what Susan said. Try, and we're going to even talk about this more next time about going forward. Schedule something as soon as possible to take either one person or a group through it. We already kind of set you up with the worksheet here. We're going to talk about that homework very soon. But can't stress enough, do it right away. Do it, and you're going to feel uncomfortable. So pick, low stakes, unless you like high stakes and it'll push you. But I'd say pick something really comfortable. Tell them you're learning, and you'll see that you know more than you feel you do. Like, you'll see once you just get in there with somebody. I think people over prepare and spend a lot of time, and then it stops their growth. And stops their expansion of this. And then when they get in there and they do it for the first time, they're like, you're talking to the person, you already know, you can, hey, I don't know that, let me go look it up, let me ask that question, I'll get back to you. Say that a lot if you need to, but right away, as soon as possible. Push yourself to do that. And it can be a lot of fun too. And then after that, it gets easier and easier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I would say show your excitement for this stuff, your enthusiasm, because then you can say things like, hey, I'm a student of this stuff because I love it. So I want to learn with you. And, like, okay, we're covering this theme. You know what? That's not a theme I encounter that often. Let me pull out the text. Let's really get into it together, because I love this learning process and I want to show you how I do it, and if you can do it better. And so let's pull out the theme focus and look at it, and I'll read it to you and we'll talk through it together. Like, adopt that mentality so you don't put all this pressure on yourself to be perfect, because that's no fun.
Agreed. Well, why don't we get into our strength thinking homework? We had you do the long version of the worksheet. That's the one that you really can hone in if you're working with yourself or with somebody else that is looking at taking that activity up the strength ladder, the performance ladder. This gives you a lot of material and a lot of places to come back to, and places to identify if they get stuck or if their growth, how to accelerate it. So I want to dive into this homework, because if you did it, you probably spent a lot of time working through it. This isn't something you'd probably do in a worksheet. That's why we have the shorter version. But it kind of skips over a lot of value that the longer version gives you as you're beginning to prepare either an initiative for yourself or for someone else. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, first let me just see, did everybody take a stab at it? Doesn't mean you had to have done it perfect or anything. Just see if anybody actually did take a stab at it, or enough people did, so we can get some feedback on how that went. Yeah, I'd love to hear anybody kind of share your experience of talking through it. We could do that. Or if you'd like me to just do a quick primer and refresher, I could do that too. So you just let me know what you guys need first.
I think that, well, the last time you did it, we didn't have the short version a year ago. So we all did the long version. And and so I put the time into the long version the last time. And I think we went all the way. We had the option of adding 6 to 10 of our top strengths as well. So we did 1 to 5, then we did the 6 to 10. And I found it, very, very helpful. So this time I decided, I'm being a little bit lazy since we're on vacation with our daughter. I decided I would use the short form. And so basically I've made a break. I've retired. So I am no longer working for my organization. And so my activity is how to start up my own part-time business.
Susan, congratulations. That's huge.
So
Exciting.
I don't want a full-time job, and I don't want to be out there working 40 hours a week. You know, I'm looking maybe 15 to 20 hours maximum a week. And so that's what my activity is trying to pull all the pieces together of how this is going to look. So it's like, I mean, I've got the content. So for how far up, I think the first question was, you know, how did you want to be? And right now, for starting my own business, if I can become competent, I wouldn't want to start the business if I wasn't competent, but I don't think I'm at the level that I would want to try to aim at the strengths level, you know, quite this early. Competent maybe, then, you know, work my way up to the other, but competent to start. I basically have narrowed down my niche. I'm going to be basically just working in the career field. I'm not going to be doing personalized coaching. So I've got so the skill is working with students going on to college or people transitioning out of their job. So, you know, what is the career fit? So basically I'm using more than just Strength Finders. I'm using Strong Interest Inventory and the Myers-Briggs. And I know a lot of people feel that those put you in boxes. I don't feel either one put you in a box the way I do it.
Wait a minute. People say to you, you are putting people in a box. You are a box putter. They put you in the box of being a box putter. A little ironic. It's like when people tell me I'm being pessimistic. I'm like, what a negative view of what I'm saying. I'm being realistic, but you view it as pessimistic. So am I the pessimist or are you? And I say it just like that. And
you better look at what Rhonda just wrote.
Okay, well.
No, but it's.
Oh gosh, there's a lot of writing going on. You guys are chatty. What's going on with all this chat up here? Flynn and I don't know about this.
But that's why I'm using 3 different instruments to do this. And so I'm certified, and so that's not a problem. I've got the content down. And so it's just finding my clientele. I'm trying to develop a Facebook presence and fix up LinkedIn. And so my daughter's helping me with that. My son works in South Korea. He works all of Southeast Asia. And so he works at, goes to international schools for their financial stuff. So he's willing to pull in a plug for me for some of these students internationally to help them with that. So I'm pulling all, you know, what does it take to form a business? I'm looking at SOAR, you know, .com to see, you know, if that is an option. I'm looking at Chris Hines has one out there. I've looked at that one. So I'm looking at, so that's some of the activities that I've got down to do. So I've put a lot of thought and time into this, and I still got a ways to go before this gets off the ground. And I'm still sitting here. I'm not really qualified to do this.
No.
That's
okay.
spoken like a learner.
That's exactly right. Look, if you're here, which I think you're higher, I think you're advanced at least, but let's just say you're here. If you do a workshop or work with college students, well, by the way, you know, you're working with dum-dums. I mean, they're not only because they're young. I love young people, but they don't know. They don't have experience. So, you know, compared to them, they're going to be like down here, beginner, or are oblivious. They don't even know what they don't know. So even if you were basic, you could add value to them, but you're at least here, but I think you're there. And so, yeah, but like Felinda said, that's the learner talking. Learners never know enough. There's always more to learn.
But I think, you know, Adam said it before quite a few times. I'll say it again here too. This particular application of the, you know, talents to the activity, most people don't get this far, or they don't have a way to do this. This will help you channel. So what Susan's talking about, that's, you know, what you're about to do is so many activities built into that. You can break each activity down, which it sounds like you're doing. You can use this model to kind of refer back to. Also, it lets that learner have a little bit of a break too, to say, I don't need to be a mastery before I begin working or starting my business or, wading into this particular activity, hooking up with SOAR, looking into what career aspects you're going to support with the transitions, what age group, all those things. You've been able to isolate those activities, apply your talents, see how they fit, see where you might actually, like with learner, kind of get ahead of that feeling of not knowing, and that learner always just like, I don't know if I can start. You can get ahead of that with this. And I think that using this model here will really help take these things to the next level with that material that we've worked through with the coin or with any application of the StrengthsFinder or talent materials out there. So hoping that you guys really do embrace this. It can seem like a lot at the beginning, and I know it's like you've already gone through a lot, but this is where you're going to help people kind of like rubber meets the road, the day-to-day activities. And I've found it to be really useful when I work with people, just kind of getting them out of that stuck place. And we'll come back to that block. I just saw the text now that I know there's a chat going. So, all right. So let's anybody else want to weigh in on their experience on just, what about the block? Was it around this particular activity? Was it something else? Or if you want to weigh in on what you did for this homework assignment.
Hey, hi everybody. So, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I didn't get through it. I thought through it. Right, typical. I thought through it. Okay. But I didn't get through it. So I'm gonna say I heard a few people say when they did it before or did it last time that they've done this course once or twice. I mean, twice or more. So I may be one of those people.
So I really think there's value to that. So I'm just gonna say everybody, this applies to everyone. Please join us again in January or in the next course. Because one, we love to have you again, but I really think it helps to hear this more than once.
Okay, yes. So if that offer is definitely available, I so appreciate that. Because it's a lot of information. For one, to understand it, two, to process it for yourself, like, because things start clicking and start to make sense. So my activity, so here's the thing, and I think this was why it took me so long to try to think through it, is because I do photography, and I had gotten so frustrated with photography, with the business side of photography. I didn't like the business part. Didn't really like the creative part so much either, because I'm just like, I want to be so dope at photography, and I'd be like, my work doesn't look like that, and I just didn't feel like I would ever get there. But going through this, looking through this, this process, I don't know, for some reason, I always thought that my strengths or my talents was the thing that I should be doing, instead of looking at using the talents to do, I can do almost anything.
The way you said it, the way you said that, it was really, really good. I'm probably going to come back to this point and copy that, because that's what it's so hard for people to get away from that. But here's the thing. Your talents are happening all the time because they are patterns. What makes them talents is what makes them already happening. So that's not the thing necessarily to work on. Although, obviously we think the coin model is about refining that resource, refining those themes, learn to gain control over them. But, it's the activities that we're performing in life. That's what we want to focus on, and we want to bring our talents to bear on those activities that matter most. We got to think of ways, what assets do I already have? How could I channel it into this activity and make it go better for me? That's just the talents. But then you say, well, maybe it's not, I can make even more gains if I focus not on my talents toward this activity, but gaining knowledge on this activity. It's time for that now. I need to spend a little time on knowledge. Oh gosh, I've been gathering so much knowledge. I actually haven't been practicing the actual skills. I actually haven't been going through the steps of the activity. Now I need to work on that. And you can apply it to photography or, just anything.
Yeah. So that was the aha moment for me. And now thinking about it, it's like, well, maybe don't throw photography in the trash just yet. Like, use your talents to learn the back end systems and all that stuff. So I want to try that. But then at the same time, I'm so excited about talents and strengths that I'm like, well, how am I going to do photography and this? Because this was for me, but I really want to do this. I think I want to do this, but I don't know if I could do
Yes, you need to do a workshop. You need to find out that someone's going to pay you, depending on the audience, because some audiences have different budgets. But when somebody says, oh, Nikki, thank you so much for coming out today and working with us for 4 hours, and here's a $3,500 check for you, or something like that. It'd be like, oh, wait, no, I can't take that. No, I don't do this for money. I do this for love.
we both have worked through that. That's what we're.
So how do you guys start? Like, how do you go about? Like, how do you start?
Yeah. What do you do?
How do you look for more people like us who would be fascinated or don't know, who don't know about strengths or want to know more? Like, where do you find? How do you start that whole process? I mean, I know for me, I thought about just talking about my own experience, maybe like on social media or whatever, and then see what happens.
That is the primary way. So I would say there's two ways that, both Adam and I have built what we do, and I think work the best. And that, what you just described, talking about why it mattered to you and how you've applied it, that personal story and experience, that's how I got so many people, because I was just excited about it. I wanted them to have it too. And, and so you get them interested in it because they see that it mattered to you and that, oh, I could see how that could apply to me. The other way was just, and partly they overlap because there's some of the, you're telling your story about why it matters, they're interested, then you begin to have a conversation, and then the story and the conversation shifts to them and why it matters to them and how they could apply it. And that's where we kind of see that shift of like, Adam will do a lot of lunches one-on-one. I tend to do, I don't tend to do lunches as much. I tend to do more one-on-one conversations. I don't know why, I guess I don't like sitting at a restaurant very long. So I think that's my thing. But Adam will, hey, you're interested in this? Take the Strengths Finder, send me your results. Let's meet for lunch. Let's just talk over your top 5. Let's see what that's about. And then they kind of go from there. And I would suggest this is for everybody. If you're just starting this and you want to just get some practice, groups that you're part of. So it could be your faith community, a not-for-profit that you work with, just a small group. I was laughing because I'm going to ask my chiropractor maybe. I just think they could use it and it'd be fun. And I thought maybe I'd just see if they'd be interested in doing it just for fun. I think they might need it. They've had some changes in their office. So anyway, things like that where you're like, hey, I want to try this out. I think this will be a fun group to work with. Let me just see. Let me talk to the person that might make it happen. You might already be the person that might make it happen in a group. But so I know Adam worked with a group at a church, and he said, you know what? Because you're not for profit, I'm going to come in, I'm going to do this no charge. I just ask you to consider if this seems like a good fit for your team at your organizations, to consider it. And he did that. And, it's just that simple, that small request. They said, great, sure. Sometimes we do charge not for profits, so just give them a different rate. But things like that, where you went in, you did that, it led to some engagements down the road.
I'll tell you, I mean, I'll just say it led to at least $20,000 over the course of a year or two, just from doing that.
And so I think, and we'll talk a little more too, but just that personal story, and then also as soon as possible, once you have that person's top 5, get in the conversation of how it shows up for them in their life, and get them kind of exposed to some of this material, because in that moment is when they see like, oh, this could actually be useful to me and help me in my relationships, things like that. I even was at Thanksgiving, I was talking to a relative of mine I haven't seen in 10 years. And he's like, oh, you should really come to Goodwill where I work. We really need this. We weren't even talking remotely about, I was just telling him what we do and, why it's fun, why it matters to me. So things like that. I'm going to stop there. But that's
awesome. Somebody did ask me, because I was just telling them that, my fascination in it and studying it. And she was like, she said, you think you could do an activity with it around it? And I was like, possibly. I was like, for? She was like, well, I was thinking for our group. But then she really, she's getting involved with young girls. She said, I really think students, like teenagers, should have access to this information early. And I was like, I think so too. So I think it's actually, a lot of opportunity in it. It's just that I never saw myself as doing something like that,
I can see it. I just want you to know, I can see it. And I love the conversation that's happening here. Rhonda's tips are awesome. And like her sequence here of starting with the top 5 icons, that's a great way to introduce them. It's very approachable to do it that way. And then the theme anatomy to really help them. And then the coin model. That's great. And you could just use those 3 things as your core. And let's say you had more time, you might at the front end say, before we even show you your top 5 icons, let's talk about what strengths are. Let's talk about what talents are, and set the stage, and then do that sequence. And then if you have more time, then you do that sequence we just created. And then you'd say, all right, you know what, maybe before we do theme anatomy, let's go through the signature themes report. Maybe get them into the Gallup's original wording around those and have them do an exercise with that. Then we'll take them through coin, then we'll do all that sequence. That when we go through coin, then okay, now we'll connect. Now we'll have them do the mnemonic exercise. They're going to create a mnemonic and memorize their top 5. Or we're going to do something else. We're going to do something more interactive or discussion oriented. Now we got to move on to observe. So we'll do enablers, or something like that. And you'll learn which activities work well and which you don't have time for, and you'll run out of time so many times that you'll be like, all right, I guess I can't do all that, so let me focus. So, and what's really cool is when I struck out to do this, and when Rhonda struck out to do this, there wasn't a lot of people around, and there wasn't a lot of support. There wasn't talent to strength. I developed all of this stuff for myself because I do come from a consulting background. For 18 or 20 years before I met StrengthsFinder, I was out there doing this with other things, learning how to do workshops or put content together. So then when I met StrengthsFinder, I'm like, oh, and then I started putting it together. And you guys have that. And you guys could just hang out with us if you think this is something that you think you want to put some energy into and invest yourself into, and you get excited about it, then we can help you, I think. I don't know if I'm not saying we'll turn you into multi-billionaires, but millionaire at least.
Oh goodness. Well, I'd love to hear, Leanne. Can you share your example? I know you did in the chat, but do you want to talk a little bit about that since we're on topic?
Sure. So I did exactly what you guys prescribed, and I had a local nonprofit that I know the founder of, and she has a youth leadership team, youth advisory committee of young women that are in high school, and they are paired with professional women in the community, and they do outdoor activities. So they'll do hiking and, all talking around a leadership lesson. So they're helping these women become leaders. And so she had talked about strengths and had done a lot of work with it. And when I moved back, she just asked if I could do something with the group. And I said, yeah, give me some time and I'll figure out what it is. And when we were going through this, I thought, well, this is fun for them and it will bring it that edge of understanding. You know, this is how I can execute it. That's not that I'm saying it's not good, but I was just bored with the content that I got from my initial Gallup training, and it just wasn't jazzing me up, and people can feel that. So I thought, well, this is a great opportunity to practice what I've been learning in this group with a small group that they're excited and they're forgiving and they already know me as someone, right? So I can go in there and be a little raw and I don't have to worry about my perfection, and we can have a good time with it. And there was a couple of things I totally failed on. I like to have lots of resources and I'm an arranger, so then I want to use them. But what I also know is I want to get things checked off my list. So I went through with all of these researches, and in reflection, I've made some notes of some things I will change going forward. It was just too much information and they didn't, there wasn't a lot of time, and I'll slow it down next time, but they still got good nuggets out of it, to the point where one of the mentors works for a STEM education department at the state of Idaho, and they had done DISC last year. And she said, I just really think we're ready for this because that was more individual centric and we are growing as a team. And I can see whether this will work with our team. So can I have your card? I said, sure. Handed her my card, and her department head has already called me today, and we're in a conversation for a contract to do it in a bigger, robust for their growing team. So, it really was, I didn't walk away. Like, I still in the shower this morning was thinking about all the things I did wrong and overanalyzing all of the stuff I would change. But then I was like, no, it's okay. And it is okay. And it did work out well. So it really is getting your hands in it, and it's okay to be messy. I keep telling myself. So
people are going to get value from it, even if you aren't perfect, because StrengthsFinder is a really good tool.
Well, it's absolutely. I mean, that's the thing. And are you still sharing this?
No, it's not.
Can you share for 1 second? And what you guys are talking about and what Leanne just described is the formula right here. That was the skill piece, the practice piece, right? She had the knowledge she needed. She has her talents firing, and she even just described some ways they were. And, now it's just the practice piece, which that's where you get in and see what works and what doesn't. That's where it gets a little messy. That's where you're like, oh, like I actually really like when it's a little messy, because you're like, if I just tweak that a little bit, or if I pull that out completely, because that just does not work. I mean, that's where you really get to test those things, right? But you got to practice that. And that's really the way you can move up this ladder, and it becomes a lot less like, oh, I've got to be perfect, I've got to be in there. You can just get in there and do it. And there has never Adam and I talk about this a lot, like we've done trainings on other materials. And there's always stuff that works and that doesn't, but this particular material, and we think it's because it is very positive, because it is very central to the individual and about communicating with the people in the room. It is very rare that, people come away and say, well, I didn't have anything I experienced. People usually have a very positive experience, even when we're like, wow, Adam will come away and he'll be like, I only got through the introduction, and still people are like, hey, I want more. So what's nice about this material is it's still, there's a lot of it, yes, and you can pick and choose, but people tend to really respond to it. And that's the nice thing, so that you can feel a little more comfortable going in and, messing up a little bit, because people still seem to be okay with that. So,
I've done well over, I don't even know how many, but well over 100 Talent to Strength workshops. I've never had a failure of a workshop. And it's because of me. No, I'm just kidding. But it's the content. It's well organized. You know more than they know, because you know us. I mean, because you did Talent to Strength, you know more than pretty much just about anybody on StrengthsFinder. I mean, yeah, your knowledge, you got the content knowledge. Then you know, like I liked your describing what you did the other with this group. You got experiential knowledge with them. You're like, and so that, and the only way to get it is through experience. You're going to continue your studies and you're going to continue to apply it. So you are advancing your performance because you are advancing your knowledge. You can advance your performance also by advancing your skills, and you can advance your performance by the better implementation of your themes. 16 different points here along the way of how to improve performance. It's pretty awesome. And so after realizing this, like the process of putting this together was interesting. I mean, it was taking a lot of Don Clifton's ideas, his formula, for example, but then realizing the importance, the primacy of activity in all of this. Like that was that little wrinkle. If you get it, and it still may not be clear, and that's okay, and I am happy to explain it again because it takes repetition. But this one step, nobody else in the StrengthsFinder universe really talks about the primacy of activities, how important it is to really get clear on activity. And then we connect it, not activity, not just for the sake of activity, but activity for the sake of moving from contrast toward alignment. So we front load all of this. So before you even talk about StrengthsFinder, there's these just natural concepts of human performance and the human experience. And now we take the formula and working with it. And the StrengthsFinder is such a critical ingredient because it gives us this taxonomy of 34 very prominent ways people are different. And you start there. But what happened, and I'll dismount here, people took the StrengthsFinder and the 34 themes and they stopped there. They got so mesmerized by it because it's awesome. And then they just stopped and said, these must be strengths. And then that's it. And then we're like the voice in the wilderness going, but there's more. And Dr. Clifton had more to say. And so you're now hanging out with us. So I think we're going to make a difference. That's my dismount. That was pretty good.
Leanne, did you have another point I see in the chat?
Well, kind of, but that was so awesome. I was going to keep my mouth
I know.
shut.
Let's talk about that. Oh my gosh.
Oh.
So blown away.
So I'll ruin that with my point, but I am excited about the win that did come from yesterday. That's a direct result of our conversations, and you know, the moment things just I knew I wasn't going to get things done, and there was all of the, you know, they're working on a branding statement, so I was going to weave the strengths into that, and you guys had that great tool. You know, I was like, oh, this is great, and it was out of order, but I was going to kind of adapt it and play with it and structure it a little bit differently, and I wasn't going to get to that. But it was because they started asking me questions, and I stopped with my agenda and leaned in because I felt like I understood even how to converse with individuals about their wholeness a little bit better from this conversation, that we then went off for 15 minutes of them just asking me questions off the cuff. That was so powerful because it's more meaningful for them because that was where they were coming from. So you guys have mentioned like meeting people where they're at. And so I was able to really do that, and I felt confident in it, and it didn't derail me, because at the end of the day, I think you said, Adam, it doesn't matter if they don't connect with their themes, you know, you're not going to go anywhere anyway. And so I said, that kind of popped into my head like a little bloop, Adam, right there. And I was like, oh, okay, they don't connect, or they're trying to connect, so let's help them connect. And I skipped like 10 slides, and we kind of did a few other things, and we just had a conversation. And so that, I think, was more meaningful for them than any activity that I had zero stuff. But it was also fun to play with all those things.
So great.
It's so true. And that is so true too. Like, I don't think I've ever had a workshop. Like, people might start a little quiet, but you know, I'd say build in your time for questions, because every time, you know, that's the thing. It's like, that's the thing you do want to talk about, because you're exactly right. People get excited, and it's someone they know asking a question. You get into this discussion. We also try to get like discussion going at the tables and kind of come by and talk to them too. But that's where you just see it happen. You know, you're exactly right. And I've never had a workshop where people didn't start, like, once it starts, it doesn't usually stop. So it is sort of how to balance that. But Absolutely. It all, it is where you can weave in material too, as you probably found. You knew the answers and you knew kind of where to take those questions. And that is part of, what you've been doing for the past 9 weeks. You were there for that, right? And so that is the thing that I want to circle back to that I said earlier. You guys already know more than you feel like you know when you're thinking about preparing to give this to someone. You're going to be in that moment and you're going to probably have more answers to those questions than you think you are. So don't wait to get involved with some people. Leanne's example is really great because you'll be surprised, I think. And there might be a few things you don't, but I don't know, you can be surprised. So.
I want to say something on this too. I want to catch it on recording too, so here's a good. Something I noticed is you move up this thingy, as you move up this ladder, something interesting happens. And it's something I don't hear people talk about, but I think it'll make sense. It's when you're down here, everything is important. You don't know, all this information just floods your senses. But when you move up this ladder, you're learning something else. You're learning to separate what is important from what is not, what matters from what doesn't, or what is signal and what is noise. So when you learn more, as you move up the ladder in Talent to Strength, for example, with the content, you're going to know, all right, I want to talk about this piece because it's on the agenda, but we totally don't have time for it. And the real payoff for this group on this day, for whatever reason, is if we get them to really dive in on this topic. And even if that means the rest of my agenda goes out the window, you'll know to do that because you'll know what's important. You know to separate the signal from the noise, the wheat from the chaff, whatever, And that's what happens when you move up the ladder. And I never noticed that or thought about that before, but I want to see if you have any reactions to that. That idea that when you move up, early on, you don't know what to pay attention to and everything is important. And then as you have more experience and you move up this ladder, you're like, oh yeah, that doesn't matter. Oh, this is something I should pay attention to.
I'm not sure if this pertains to your exact question, but just looking at this chart, because I've been giving myself the blues the last few days because it's the end of the year and I'm like, I've been in this coaching session and this coaching session and I haven't done anything, right? And I felt really like crazy. But
in regards to what? In regards to StrengthsFinder stuff? Or?
No, just strengths, just business, different business courses. So not this. This is something I did. This is like one of the last things that I did this year.
Okay.
But looking at this, so I'm really hard on myself. But when I realize I'm moving up the ladder, because when I look at the beginner and it says decision to invest, seeks coaching, and willing to be awkward, because I felt awkward in all these different.
I hate being awkward. I avoid things so I don't have to look awkward. But you got to pay that price, and some things are worth it. Go on.
I thought it was a waste. I thought I wasted money in time, but I'm seeing it was because I thought if I got it all now, but I didn't use it, that I wasted it. But I see that there's more levels to this.
And it's such an important point, and because this is a symptom of the deficit thinking world we've been raised in. What you just said, and that mentality that I have too. I want it to be perfect. I have these super high expectations, but I got to allow myself this learning curve. And so, the last couple of months, I've been riding around on these electric unicycles. And one of the things, I was going to do it anyway, but one of the things that I thought would be really cool is to see, because I've never done it before and I was oblivious, that I had the opportunity to climb this ladder on something so simple as like riding, not simple, but amazing, a miracle. The miracle of an electric unicycle. It's a modern miracle. But anyway, I'm moving. I had to become a beginner. And I remember, and I was out at the tennis courts with all my gear padded up and holding onto the fence for dear life while I'm standing on this thing. and one of my high school students and his dad come to the tennis court. And the dad is the president of the university where I run my high school program. And they're watching me be an absolute beginner, and I was fine with it. You know, because I decided ahead of time, and I was aware, this model makes me aware of that, hey, that's the price I'm going to have to pay. And more than that, more than just that, I had to fall and hurt myself and all sorts of weird stuff to move up this ladder. And I got basic. I started filling up the box with some basic moves. And now I'm pretty competent. I'm riding around all over the place, and it's been interesting. So that might be as high as I go on this activity, and that's going to be fine. But at least it tells me the path ahead, and that's what I think is really cool. And so it's going to lead me to another point I want to get on recording. It does only take 2 minutes. But I was thinking about our education system, and everybody knows it needs help. And they're looking at designing the school of the future. Like here in Tulsa, they're looking at it. And it's a big initiative around the country to really look at, do we need to redesign high school? It hasn't changed since the industrial age. And that made me think, the video game world has a lot to teach a little bit to teach. And that is the importance of leveling up. And that's what this is doing here. The reason we have an education system is we are trying to level up our young people in ways that matter so they could be successful and self-sustaining. There's a quote from Thomas Paine, I think, or Thomas Jefferson, one of those two. I think it was Thomas Jefferson who said, I became a revolutionary so my kids could be farmers. Not my kids, my children could be farmers, so my grandchildren could be poets. It's this view of society that if you position people to play to their strengths, that they are better individually and society is better collectively. And that is Don Clifton's vision. I have an audio recording, and I mentioned it in this week's thing, Belinda got for me for my birthday. In this audio recording, Don Clifton is talking about exactly that's what he wants to see happen from this. So, good stuff. I used up all the time. We're at 5 o'clock.
Yeah. Well, I think this is important that, I want you guys to, kind of, and Nikki, you said earlier you thought through this activity that, once you do this activity, I do want it to be something you go through mentally in your head. You don't have to sit down and write out everything all the time, right? But like just referencing it and kind of referencing points of it. And, when you do find yourself in those weird, awkward places, check in with the model and be like, you know what? It's all good. Like I'm on the ladder. I'm working my way up. And that's what I meant too by when, it gives you a way to kind of really process the growth of this, of the given activity of anything, right? So we are already at week 9. And we are just with one more week together. And so next week you have your video. Adam, can you go to the homework slide? So I'm going to talk about the homework. We'll stick around and talk a little longer. But you've gone all the way through the COIN model. This is the mature talent piece.
Hold on, I'm not screen sharing it yet.
Sorry. Okay, he's getting there. And so you're going to watch your pre-session video for session 10. Like Adam said, it's a little longer, but
it's so good.
I'm going to hold him to that. And so should everyone else. So watch your pre-session 10 video. It's our last week together. We'll talk about, the one-on-one strength interventions, how you would, work that in. Going forward, we'll have you fill out the feedback form. And continue to connect with your accountability partner, and reach out to us if you have any questions. So one more week. Again, we'll stick around and talk a little more tonight. We have there's a lot in this week. There'll be a lot in next week's content. That's okay. Like we said, you can always come back through, and you're going to have these videos to watch, and anything we refine you'll have. So we're here for you. But this model, this, strength thinking, again, we play around with the name a little bit too, so you may see that change one day. But this model paired with the performance ladder, so useful when you get in the practicalities of working with an individual or a team or, even in larger organizations. So I'm going to stop there. thank you all for being here tonight. It went really fast. And we'll see you next week, but we'll also be here for questions.
Yeah, we'll stick around for a few minutes. And yeah, if you guys want to use that hand raise feature, feel free. Any comments? Rhonda apparently has comedy open mic night on this little chat over here, and I think I deserve a little bit of a little percentage of her tips for being the butt of these jokes. It was fun. It was great. It's my job. I'm good at it. But yeah, so any other thoughts, questions, insights, musings? We'll take musings tonight.
I'll go again. So first of all, let me just say, when I'm in group things, I don't talk. So the fact that I talk here is
that's great.
It's,
that's fantastic.
It's showing me that this is something that really resonates with me. So
you got to pay attention to those things in life.
Yeah. So I did share a story in one of my other groups, and it was just kind of like something about me, my background and everything. And I talked about growing up and how I flunked high school and, just a series of events that happened and how I had such low self-esteem because I didn't have a college education for a lot of years, right? I didn't get an associate's degree until 2010 when I was about maybe like 38 years old. And when I was piecing the story together, I saw where my learner and my my learner, and I think it's my ideation, was carrying me through my life. So even though I was cutting classes, but then they would say
you were doing it intellectually.
Right. So they said, oh, this big test is coming up. And I'd be like, oh gosh, I got to take this test. I ain't been to class in weeks. But then I would go get the book, take all weekend, study it. And then I got a 93 on the test, and then when I actually didn't finish high school, I went to an alternative school to try to get my diploma after I had my daughter. And then the guy said to me, the instructor, he was like, why don't you just take the GED? And I was like, I don't want a GED. I want a high school diploma. He was like, but you're ready. And so I said, okay. I got the book, studied it for a weekend, passed the test, got a job. The broker said, oh, I'm going to pay for you to go to real estate school. And I was like, okay. Went to real estate school, did the practice test over the weekend, passed, got my real estate license. And some of the real estate agents, one of them came to me and she was like, you passed on the first try? I was like, yeah. She's like, you know how many times I took that test? And so even when I wasn't aware of my talents, they were working for me to the point where once I got to corporate, even though I was so, I would shrink because I didn't have a college background. It took a while for me to realize once I knew what I wanted, I would study it. And then I ended up getting a promotion. I was like 2-3 levels up. And, now I've built my confidence to where, I'm in a room with attorneys and they're asking me questions. So that learner intellection and all of that stuff. And so I guess what I have is a canned story I can use to talk about.
You have a great story. I'm stealing it. That is now my story.
Yeah, my strengths carried me through.
Absolutely true. And that's a great story. And I think that's, it's something that happened to me too. It's like, and Adam and I talk about this a lot, it's like you kind of look back on things and you're like, oh, wouldn't it have been nice to know that, at the time, right? We could have applied it more. That's why I love when we can work with young people with this information. Cause oh my gosh, I would have struggled a lot less, but it was in there and it was carrying me through in some really interesting ways, and so it's pretty fun to look back and to see. And I think, yes, it makes for a really good story.
And then just add to it, then to take that story and then any of you, you can build on this. Start with this idea that everybody needs this content. You know, it's not about everybody needs to hire you and pay you money and blah, blah, blah. No, everybody needs this content. And then the vehicle through which they will get it is by hiring you and paying you money. But they need the content. People need the content. And they might say, I don't need the content. And that's where you say, you do need the content. Shut up.
Just like that. Yeah, I don't know why we didn't put that approach in our
Just
materials.
shut up is the mantra. No, just kidding.
That's how it's all his clients.
Yeah, I charm people by telling them to shut up. No, but it really, you know, right? Like, did that make sense? People need this. They just need it. So you got to provide it. And you can do it for free, or you can have some help with your mortgage.
Well,
Hey, I had to show off. That's going to be the third generation of strengths right there.
Oh,
it was
Because
very-
I already raised 2 with their strengths. And so now he will be too.
nice.
very
Excited.
I'm kind of upset that not upset, but I saw that they say the strengths assessments don't really start till like 10 years old. So I'm like, I have to wait about 8 years before my grandson can take it.
You wait, before you're what?
Oh yeah, I'm not a little girl. I talk like one, but yeah, I'm a grandmother.
That just doesn't compute. I don't know.
That's awesome.
I look, let me see if this makes sense. Yeah, I look more like a grandmother.
I like that you paused to see if that was going to make sense.
I wanted to make sure I was insulting me.
That was a good modeling of interrupting yourself in the moment, Adam. I appreciate that.
Oh, you guys saw that? Was that?
Yeah, that was great.
I thought the camera just went off during moments where I'm embarrassing myself automatically. All right. What else important? Not forget what I have to say. What do you guys have to say? What else?
So I don't know if this is important, but I had shared, I think 2 sessions ago about my to-do list, right? And how they're kind of not, I can't even boss myself around. So I actually have my list with me.
Oh,
So it's hard to see, but
Ranger.
I literally, that was my weekend list from this weekend.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, most of it's checked off.
Yes. How do you like it? How's that working?
The talent to strength part is, well, it works for me. I mean, but it's something I struggled with. My achiever and my ranger just couldn't go. I couldn't even boss myself around. And that's the truth.
I love that. I think that's great because we need to be able to self-correct. We all have things that we don't know that could be better, or how to fix it, or how to find the right way. So I'm glad you're doing that. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I love, like you guys, like Nikki's story, Leanne's example. I love seeing how this stuff shows up for people. Because even, we talked about earlier that box thing. This is one where you get to see the uniqueness of people and how it does show up in their life and how it has served them and how, I don't know, I could talk about it endlessly with people and do. but I'm just excited. So thanks for sharing that, you guys. That was great, both of you.
Yep. That's awesome. So yeah, we want you guys to feel your confidence going up because that also happens up the ladder too. Confidence rises. What's all this?
Enjoy that baby, Rhonda. She was saying bye.
Oh, okay. Cool. All right.
Okay.
Good. Yeah. Anything else? Okay, we got 2 people. Go ahead. You can call them people.
Oh no, I don't see the hand.
Oh, well, they know they're putting the rate. They're physically. doing
Oh, sorry. I'm like, this isn't my computer, so I'm like, I don't know where to look.
See, that's what I'm talking about. I can separate the signal from the
There's
noise.
a lot to look at here.
Yeah, I have 3 screens worth. So she's now coming to this, and of course, like I'm not thinking like, what would it look like the first? And by the way, my screens are covered with like stuff, just stuff. Anyway, so yes, separating signal from noise. Think of just if that point didn't like quite land for you, just keep an eye out for it.
So I am having a hard time separating signal from noise, but I saw Susan's hand physically go up. I got that one. Susan, get me.
Yeah, I was going to say that it was interesting. A couple of weeks ago, it was with the POM. I mean, your program has so many different things that we can use. And so we were actually, my husband and I are mission deacons at the church. We had this young couple that were there, and they wanted to talk about what they wanted to do and everything. And it just came to me, you know, what's your purpose? You know, why are you wanting to go and do this trip? What's your purpose? What outcomes are you hoping to see? And then what methods? And he's getting out his pen and he's writing it down. And he said, oh, this is really great. And then afterwards, my husband said to me, he said, where did you come up with that? He said, that was really, really great. So it was totally not, you know, using strength finders or anything. It was just using the POM and just seeing how you could apply that in any situation. And that can be a way in too to help people, you know, and then later on you can maybe talk more about the strengths, but a way in. But yeah, it was just amazing to see, you know, I had 3 different people reacting to the POM in a very positive, helpful way.
That does my heart really. You just lowered my cholesterol by like 10 points. That was great. Thank you.
Well, now I hope mine will not go down.
Cool. Good. What else? All right. Well, we'll be here next week. Well, she won't. She'll be back home next week. I'll be here next week.
I will be here, but we won't be on the same screen.
That's right. That's right. Yes, go for it.
I got another question.
Yeah.
It may not be appropriate.
Oh, then yes, please do ask, by all means.
Okay. This has to do with Gallup stuff. And I was on their website and I saw that, you know, they're offering things like their kits for half price, you know, this weekend.
Okay.
So if instead of 500, it's 249 or whatever.
That's a good
And
deal.
I never had their kits, so I don't know all that's in them. And is that an investment that would be profitable, or is it not something that, for those of you that have a kit, I don't know who has, you know.
Well, I'm going to ask it this way. Adam, do you use your kit?
I do not use my kit, but I also think it's valuable. It's good. They updated it. So when I went through their certification, I think it was 4 or 5 years ago, I got 2 boxes of stuff and all the materials, and it was all like books with binding, and I didn't use any of it, but it was nice having it there, and there was all these resources. I also want to say too, by the time I went through certification, I was already well on the way of developing Talent to Strength stuff already, and had icons already developed, and you know, coin model wasn't done, but it was on its way. So I didn't use any of the stuff, but the resources are good. And then when they went and redid it and made it electronic, I started going through it, and I liked it. I was one of the early reviewers of it, and one of the things that made me happy was they were starting to distinguish between talents and strengths in their materials. So that was right there, progress. But for $250, that's pretty good. So I don't know.
They're not doing the electronic one. It's just their box kits.
Okay.
They're written materials. So I'm wondering, is it their older materials that they're trying to get rid of?
Right, they're selling off inventory. Well, that would make sense. I think you could just ask. I think they'd be honest about it. And you know, there's not.
It's definitely not electronic. You can't get the electronic stuff. And I wondered, was that worth it? You know, compared to everything we already have. And
Okay, so honestly, if I was your husband, I would be like, what StrengthsFinder stuff could I get for my strengths obsessed wife? And I would probably buy you the kit. And I would say, I think you'd enjoy it. I think you'd enjoy the kit.
well, I'd rather have a webinar and go to these things.
Yeah.
Then hold out for that, because I don't think the kit is essential either. I will say that.
I think that it's sort of like, it'd be nice to have materials, nice to have, I think, learner and input. Like, you're going to enjoy having fun with it. I don't think, you know, but if you're constructing a workshop, you have a finite amount of time, or if you're working with somebody, so you have to, I know for me, this is the thing too. It's like, well, how much material is enough? How much is too much? I feel like I could never have enough. But then I tend to sometimes have a lot I don't use. It'd be nice if you could kind of see some of the things ahead of time to know, like, oh, I really like that. I think I would like to use that with a person. But I think, it's always useful. I don't think you would need it. Like you're not missing anything in the sense that you definitely could do a workshop with these materials. It's just if you want some nice supplement, I think totally up to you.
And I've revised my thoughts a little bit on this too. I would say, given what you said earlier about what you're working on, I would say the amount of gain you would get from going up on those, like really, like what you would get from the kit would maybe be some really refined points that you might have missed or not heard, or, something that would maybe sharpen a little bit. But I don't think you'd get the marginal gain for what you're trying to do, which is start your own business. And I think you just need to start it, because I think you know way more than you need to know to start it. About your content expertise around StrengthsFinder is beyond plentiful. Does that make sense? Like, you should focus your energies not on learning more and buying the kit, but on how can I get myself out there, and who do I want to work with, and how can I take this whatever knowledge, your talent to strength stuff, your strong inventory, or Myers-Briggs, and weave it together so that it's a creation you're excited about and proud of. That's where I think your time should go, personally.
For now.
Yeah. Good. Any other thoughts, questions?
What could you possibly call yourself other than a coach?
Consultant.
Okay.
Trainer. I use trainer a lot because I like the word. I feel like when someone asks me what I do, I usually say I'm a trainer, but that doesn't usually explain it. So when someone's abstractly ask me, like when my relative asks, what do you do? I say consulting. Because then it kind of enters into the conversation of what topics, what kinds of things I can do. That's usually the sort of blanket word I use. If I'm talking to somebody I already know I might be working with, I usually switch to the word trainer. And I don't know why, but that one somehow, it just feels right to me. But that's how I do it usually. Because I don't love the word coach. I'll try.
I don't love it. It's not even I don't love it. It's just so many people.
Yeah, it doesn't distinguish what you do necessarily. Unless you're in a coaching environment and someone's looking for a coach, I find that word just doesn't stick for me. But, Adam, do you have anything you'd like to add to that? That's what I usually do.
Well, what I wanted to do is I wanted to recommend that video with a Fascinate lady. What's her name?
Sam Horn?
Okay.
Is it Sam
Yeah,
Horn?
so that's right. So there's this woman, is it with an N or an M?
I think it's with an N.
I do too. And so she has these talks. I typed it in, where she has these really good, like, she's put a lot of thought into how you're in an elevator with somebody, and they ask what you do. And so she has some really interesting ways. I don't know if Fascinate is part of it. I think it might be somebody else. But anyway, Sam Horn is her name. She does a TED Talk, and if you like that, then check out some of her other things. Because we thought it was really good.
Yeah, I liked your TED Talk a lot. And she had like a free resource, and I ordered her book too, but the free resource was really helpful. She just has a nice way of, like, here's how you tell your story, and you do it quickly, and you kind of introduce yourself.
And leave them wanting more.
So
cool. All right, well, we'll leave it there. We'll see you guys next week. And if you have any questions or need anything in the meantime, reach out.
Absolutely. Have a great week, everyone.
Thanks, guys. See you later.
Thank you. Bye. Bye, Susan. Bye, Nikki.